Hi, I'm Polymath, and today I'm trying to see what happened to the original Magic the Gathering cards. For a little context, the first set of Magic the Gathering cards ever printed was called Limited Edition Alpha, and I will explain the important cards and what they have been used for. As a disclaimer, when I say a card is legal, I mean the card is legal in Legacy, Vintage, and usually Commander formats, since all these cards obviously came out before the Meriden block, so they can't get into the Modern format. And if I say they're banned, that I usually mean that they're not legal, or banned, or possibly restricted in Vintage. The first set of Magic the Gathering cards was called Limited Edition Alpha. These were cards that were previous. There were other cards, but these were like the first official cards. The limited edition alpha set has 295 cards in it, and it would take me way too long to go through all of them, so I'm just going to talk about the ones that ended up doing something. This is the first version of the game, so there weren't really like a pro community or like a metagame. There was just some playtesters that the creator found working with him. This resulted in creatures being very underpowered, and some other spells being very overpowered, along with cheap. A lot of alpha is considered a mistake by the company, so they banned a decent amount of alpha. I think they feel the same way about Meriden, since they have about the same amount of bans. I'm going to start with like the obvious ones. The Power 9 are 9 cards that are ridiculously broken, and they all came out in alpha. These cards are now super expensive and super rare. It actually caused a huge power gap between those who could afford these cards, along with a couple certain other ones, and those who couldn't. This forced Wizards of the Coast to create the banned and restricted list. Currently, all the Power 9 are all banned in every format except for Vintage, where they are restricted. The first dual lands were also printed in Alpha. These are also extremely expensive, but not quite as overpowered, since they made more dual lands that also give you life points when they hit the board. However, they're considered a huge part of the game's development now, especially in strategy and deck building, since now two-color decks can function much smoother. They are legal in the older formats. And from this point on, I'm going to go in alphabetical order. That way I can organize the huge amount of information I had to go through to make this video make sense. Speaking of which, I spent hours researching and editing this video, so if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and like the video. It helps me out, and I'd feel pretty dumb if I do all this stuff and not get anything. The card Armageddon. It was printed in Alpha, and it was actually the basis of one of the first competitive decks, Armageddon Control. This deck got all the way to second place in the Pro Tour 1996 and then never won again. The deck strategy is very simple. The strategy is to play a large creature. The original creature used was the Djinn. After they manage to play that card, the deck will play the card Armageddon, and all the lands are gone. So the Djinn will just keep attacking while the other player tries to defend with limited mana, so both the Djinn and the Armageddon are still legal in the oldest formats, but now the deck is no longer quite the powerhouse that it was. The card Balance was originally considered underpowered, but then people started abusing the symmetrical effect in combo decks, so now it's banned. The card Berserk actually got onto the restricted list in 1994, then it got off it in 2003. However, this card is still considered powerful for a pretty obvious reason. You see, Magic the Gathering is a game that's based on addition and subtraction, but this card is based on multiplication by 2, and for only 1 mana, that kind of changes the game a bit. It is legal now. The card Birds of Paradise is the original mana fixer, along with still being counted as efficient compared to other mana fixers after this. This card is actually reprinted a ton, so it's legal in the older formats. Also, it's legal in Modern, which is strange. I guess they thought that other mana fixers made this no longer as broken, and I totally agree. The card Black Vice is extremely powerful, and it gets more and more broken as you play it earlier and earlier. It's actually still legal, even though if you play it turn 1 in Legacy, you basically win. The card Brain Geyser was once on the restricted list, even though it isn't really all that broken. It is definitely powerful, but I wouldn't call it like game breaking. It was removed from the list in 2004. The card Channel is famous for its use in the Channel Fireball combo. How it works is you change a ton of your life for mana, and then fireball your opponent with that mana to death. This deck is actually the original combo deck. Ideally, you start with a Black Lotus, then a Mountain, then Channel Fireball for a turn 1 win. Channel is restricted in Vintage and banned in everything else, but Fireball is still legal, because Channel can be used for a lot of other things. Mana acceleration is very important in the game. The card Chaos Orb is a dumb card. I'm just saying that. Imagine playing in a tournament. This would cause confusion everywhere. And now it's banned, even in Vintage. It is funny, though. Contract from Below is a very powerful card. Some consider it the most powerful card ever printed. And it's banned in everything, even Vintage, because the Ant isn't a feature anymore. Dark Ritual, along with Hypnotic Scepter, are both usable cards, but they were put in a combo together, and then that bullied players until creatures slowly got better. However, Dark Ritual is like ridiculous. It's like a Black Lotus, except you have to pay 1 swamp. That's very broken, and they're both legal. Demonic Tudor is a super cheap, super powerful card that is banned and restricted, even though it's legal in Commander. There's like a couple cards that are named after Demonic Tudor that do basically the same thing for more mana. Fast Bond is good for getting you some really fast mana acceleration. This was used in a couple turn 1 decks, and now it's legal in Vintage, not restricted, but banned in everything else. Icy Manipulator is legal and is currently used in control decks to slow down the faster decks so they can get their strategy going. The card Illusionary Mask, it is legal, it's not a super powerful card, it's really complicated, but now it's famous for its ability to get in the Phyrexian Dreadnought, which is a card that's almost as complicated, into play cheaply and without any of the usual complications. Lightning Bolt is arguably the best red card ever printed, and it's the original damage spell. It's still in use today, and it has like 1,000 cards that do pretty much the exact same thing, but for more mana. Mind Twist is very powerful, especially with other mana acceleration featured on this list, so it is banned in Legacy. Nevilles Disc is still used in black or red decks, since those colors often struggle with artifact and enchantment destruction. It is legal and really, really hard to pronounce. Red Elemental Blast is a hate card on the blue color and is a common sideboard choice. This is legal, pretty cheap, and yeah, it's useless if you aren't playing someone who has a blue deck. Regrowth is a very powerful card, and some decks focus on the ability to bring back cards from the grave, and Regrowth is about as cheap as it gets. This is still a legal card. Savannah Lions is considered one of the best white weenie creatures, which are 1 mana creatures that happen to be white. It is still legal and still in use. You know, Sarah Angel is actually one of the iconic cards of the game, and used to be overpowered back when there wasn't even the reach ability and flying creatures were considered rare. Now it's less powerful since they made creatures more powerful as they realized that creatures were being underpowered, so it's legal. The card Sinkhole is considered far too cheap for the powerful effective land destruction. It is legal since it won't actually break the game, and very common in control decks. The Sawring is another great source of mana acceleration, and another card that could be argued to be the best card in the game, and it's found on the restricted list. It's broken especially in the Commander format where games tend to go longer and every bit of mana acceleration matters. Swords to Plowshares is one of the 2 original creature removers along with the Lightning Bolt. This is an iconic card and legal, and a lot of people use it, so it's kind of expensive too. Time Vault is used in a combo with the card Flame Fusillade for infinite damage. That's why the Time Vault was banned. Wheel of Fortune is on the restricted list for being broken. You get 7 cards. Why? And finally, the Wrath of God. This card actually has a whole category of cards called Wraths, which are symmetrical effects that target only creatures. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, leave a like and subscribe. Like I mentioned, this video actually took forever, and subscribing would really help. Bye.